previous module, we looked at media workshops. So you will have seen some examples of how to conduct your media workshops, and you saw 3 different media as example workshops. So you may have chosen to do one of those. It was printmaking, sculpture with clay and ink, or you may have chosen a different media. But the point is that you had completed a focused workshop style activity which led you deeper into your understanding with a particular medium. So this module is all about building on the work that you did with your chosen medium and getting that really nicely into your sketchbook and building more pages for your coursework sketchbook. But also it's about continuing to weave in those ideas from your mood board and your mind map and from the work that you've already done on your topic. And it is also, in particular with this section, about deepening your understanding of your chosen medium even further, and also developing your drawing skills. It's always important to develop those drawing skills, but in this second project, rather than doing generic work on drawing skills, you're actually going to combine your experimental drawing skills work with your research and your project theme to get a more cohesive idea about that. So that's what we'll be doing with the drawing skills. But let's look at the results of a printmaking workshop that I did. So I chose to do mono printing. And when I did my mono printing, of course, I made sure that I kept any scraps and bits and pieces so that I could use them in my sketchbook. These are the monoprints that I made. So I made these in response to my topic theme, which is identity and stories. And I've got two threads running through this particular project. One of them is self-portraits, and the other one is my interest in combat sports and martial arts. So I drew a self-portrait directly on the inked surface as per the monoprint process. And I also did a drawing of a boxing bag, and I wrote a little caption there that says work the bag with a little kind of impact thing there. So 2 things that link in with my identity and stories theme. And then you will see on the other side, as per the monoprinting process, my drawing has come out on a reverse, so I had to write that backwards to get it to come out the right way. And I'm pretty happy with those 2 prints. So I'm going to add them into my page here with my beautiful title, my experiments, and also some notes about the process. Now, because these are rather nice on both sides, I'm actually going to do a little bit of sketchbook magic, and I'm going to attach these into my book using a thin piece of paper or card bent in half and some glue so that they can actually be viewed on both sides. So you can see both the print and the original drawing. So I'll probably trim that down a little bit and have that as a fold out. And then in the middle section, I'll have my notes and a few bits and pieces like that. So that will be for that page. It shows what I've done. It shows mini artworks in their own right. It's got a bit of evidence about the process, and it will have some annotation and explanation there. I've also done the same thing for lino printing here, but that wasn't covered in the previous workshop videos. So I'll work up this page and I will show you the finished page once that is done. In this demo project, you've also seen me do an ink workshop, and you've seen how I created a mini sketchbook within a sketchbook to document that process. And here is the page that I'm going to put all my notes and my kind of reflections about the process, list my materials, talk about what I did, what was successful, and how it might link to my project. Talking about ink work, I also did some more self-portraits in ink. So it's developing the media workshop experiments and linking it to the self-portraiture theme. And then straight after those, I have some artist research, primary research, gallery visits, which we'll talk about in the next section. So that's where we're at with that project at the moment. If at this stage you don't have your sketchbook pages that document your media workshop, and talk about the process and you haven't attached the work that you've created into your sketchbook, you must do that before moving on to the next lessons, which will deal with experimental drawing. So remember, for sketchbook work, we're looking for beautiful bold titles. We're looking for carefully secured and arranged original work. You can do fun little sketchbook surgery things like creating flaps that you can open. You will put in swatches and experiments, and you will also be including either handwritten or printed out text with your original own words and your notes talking about the process of what you did and any personal reflections about how it went for you, how it links into your chosen topic and your theme, and what you are going to do next. So, for example, on this page, I'm going to say I completed a monoprinting workshop and I chose 2 subject matters that relate to my topic theme. I prepared my working area with all my tools and materials. I did a couple of test prints and experiments and set those to one side. And then I created my monoprints. I put them somewhere safe to dry. I cleaned up my working area and my tools, and I felt really excited about the work that I'd made. I was really interested in the process, about how everything comes out backwards. I really enjoyed the excitement of peeling up the print because I didn't know if it was going to turn out. This was both exciting and disappointing because some of the prints that I made didn't come out the way that I wanted to because they either had too much or too little ink. Now that I'm a bit more experienced in that process, I have a better idea of how much ink to put down before I start drawing. Overall, I really enjoyed that process. I think it's really suitable to my style of drawing and for how I want my images of my self-portrait and my particular interest to come across. I like the kind of moody, grainy appearance of the final prints. I like the fact that the paper picks up some of those smudges of ink from the plate. I think it looks really good. It looks atmospheric and it creates this kind of amazing texture. It also really lends itself to the kind of line work that I like to do with drawing. So all of those reflections that I've just said are going to go in a written chunk of text there, which I will print out or write out and place on top of maybe some coloured card or something like that. So it will be nice and beautifully presented in my sketchbook. To finish off that written section, that reflection, I'm going to say I would like to develop the printmaking process even further. I'll probably make some more monoprints using similar subject matter. I'm also keen to experiment with other types of printmaking, for example, lino print making. I'm also quite interested in textiles and processes of printing onto fabric. So that's something that I'm going to look into next. So you see, as part of my reflection, I've talked about the materials, the processes and the techniques. I've talked about my project and how that's going. And I've talked about how I can develop this particular medium, in this case, printmaking, even further. And I've started to make plans for exactly how I'm going to do that, what I'm going to do. So in this case, I talked about lino cut and I talked about printing on fabric, but this is just an example. So if you've chosen a different medium, say, for example, if you've chosen digital video and photography, you would do the same process with building a page and doing your reflection, but your future thing might be to say, to develop this further, I'm going to experiment with a different app or a different feature of the software to see if I can get some different visual effects. Or you might say, I'm going to go to a different location and do another photo shoot under different lighting conditions or with a different camera or a different setting. So you're talking about planning your next steps and building on what you've already done. And remember, it's always, always, always coming back to the project theme and your ideas in response to the project theme so that we can see a cohesive narrative coming through the whole sketchbook, a logical progression, and of course, your own individual creative expression, your personal response to this project.